Welcome back to U.S. News Briefs. If you are an H-1B applicant, stop scrolling. That's right. The rules for one of the most important U.S. work visas have just changed, and it's a really, really big deal. All right, let's get right into it and break down exactly what's happening. The old H-1B lottery system, the random drawing that has literally defined careers for years, well, it's officially over. Gone. The Department of Homeland Security has finalized a rule that completely tears up the old playbook on how H-1B petitions get selected. So just how big of a change are we talking about? Well, the old system was basically a game of chance, pure luck. Every single applicant, didn't matter what their salary was just thrown into a random computer lottery. The new system? It throws all of that randomness right out the window. From now on, it's all about the money. Selection is going to be prioritized based on the wage level your employer is offering. The higher the salary, the better your chances. It's as simple as that. And look, don't think this is some proposal for way off in the future. This is a final rule. It's happening. The official start date is February 27th, 2026. What that means is these new changes are going to directly impact the H-1B cap season for fiscal year 2027. The clock is officially ticking. Okay, so how in the world does a wage-based selection actually work? Let's dive into the nuts and bolts of this new process. It all comes down to a specific government framework called the OEWs. So the most crucial thing you have to wrap your head around is the OEW's wage levels. OEW is short for Occupational Employment and Wage Statistics. Just think of it as a massive government database that has salary information for pretty much any job you can imagine, in any city in the country. It sorts all those salaries into 4 different levels, from level 1 for entry-level folks, all the way up to level 4 for the most experienced senior roles. This system, this is the new foundation for the entire H-1B lottery. And this right here, this shows you the new pecking order. It is a complete game changer. When USCIS runs a lottery now, they're going to start at the top. They'll pick all the eligible applications for jobs offering a level 4 wage first. If there are still visas left, then they'll move down to level 3, and so on. So what does that mean for you? Well, if you have a job offer at a level 1 or level 2 wage, your application will only even be looked at after all the higher wage spots are filled. Your odds have been completely turned on their head. A change this massive is always going to create some clear winners and, well, some clear losers. So let's get into the fallout and really understand the thinking behind this huge shift. Okay, so what's the official story? According to the Department of Homeland Security, the goals here are pretty straightforward. They're saying this new rule is meant to better protect jobs and wages for American workers, create a more efficient system, and, make sure that H-1B visas are really going to the highest skilled and, by their logic, the highest paid foreign professionals. But when you actually look at the public comments on this rule, you hear a very, very different tune. A lot of experts and organizations are seriously worried. This quote from the Federal Register filing really hits the nail on the head. The big fear is that by focusing only on high salaries, the U.S. is going to lose out on brilliant people who are just starting their careers, the exact people who could become the next big innovators. Now this number is pretty wild. It really shows you the scale of who this could affect. A whopping 76%, think about that, 76% of all the unique companies that filed for an H-1B last fiscal year were small businesses. We are not just talking about the giant tech corporations here. We're talking about the engine of the U.S. economy. And this is where the rubber really meets the road. Check out this data. 61% of the H-1B petitions from those small businesses were for level 1 and level 2 jobs. The ones that are now at the very back of the line for the new lottery. For startups, for nonprofits, for small companies that just can't afford to pay those huge corporate salaries, this new rule is a massive, massive roadblock to hiring. By the way, if you are finding this helpful, hit that like button so the algorithm warns other Indians in the backlog. And it's not just about small businesses, not by a long shot. The public comments pointed out a bunch of other critical sectors that are going to be in a real tough spot. We're talking about healthcare providers, especially in rural areas that are already underserved. We're talking K-12 schools and universities trying to hire top-tier teachers, nonprofits, startups, and basically any company that's located in a place with a lower cost of living. They're all going to struggle to compete for global talent now. Okay, now this is where it gets kind of wild, and it really exposes one of the biggest potential flaws in this new system. Commenters brought up some truly bizarre scenarios. For instance, get this. A highly specialized surgeon making, say, $300,000 a year could actually be classified as a level 1 wage. Meanwhile, a landscape architect making just $36,000 could somehow be classified as a level 4. It just goes to show you that using these wage levels as the only measure of skill, it's not just flawed, it can be totally backward. So we've looked at all the big picture impacts, but the real question is, with so much changing, what does this actually mean for you? All right, let's wrap this up by boiling it all down. What are your next steps? How do you even begin to navigate this completely new H-1B landscape? Well, the impact really depends on who you are. If you're a student or a recent grad aiming for an entry-level job, I'm sorry to say, but your odds of getting picked just went way, way down. If you're a startup or a small business owner, the fight for talent against the big corporations just got a whole lot tougher. Now, on the flip side, if you're a high-wage professional, someone with an offer that qualifies as a level 3 or Ivy wage, well, congratulations, because your chances of getting selected just shot through the roof. And finally, if you're an employer in a rural or lower-cost area, you're now at a serious disadvantage compared to companies in big, expensive cities. Look, this is a massive landmark change. And the full story, things like legal challenges or other adjustments they might make, is still being written. Things are developing every single day. But what we know for sure is this. The H-1B program as we knew it is over. The game has totally changed, and if you're an applicant or an employer, your strategy has to change with it. We are tracking the fallout from this decision constantly. Subscribe to US News Briefs right now so you don't miss critical updates.